Metaphysics as the root of knowledge. Spirituality as an alternative to atheism. 5a. Written by Abdel Moumin I. Ahmed. Summary. Modern studies tells us about a kind of survival after death and near-death experiences. This is hopeful news for humanity because death will no longer the end of life, and finally our dreams for eternity can be understood and realized. Descartes' tree. Draw a tree for knowledge. The tree has 3 parts, and so knowledge is. Humans has natural physical and metaphysical existence. We human beings, by nature, are being with consciousness that can comprehend the beyond physical reality, just by intuition. Reading holy books, stories and prophecies, contemplating on man history and aspirations, we can conclude some results, suggestions and expectations about the future of mankind. We are now entering a postmodern spiritual enlightenment and global spiritual reform. What I'm presenting here will be an approach for a larger project, combining rational thinking, faith, and experience. A faith-based yet universal spiritual philosophy. By this we extend an Abrahamic hand of unity to world religions. Here I introduce religion as a rational, experiential, and ethical project for faith, peace, love, and unity. Main discussion. Knowledge has a metaphysical root. The priori of Kant is not just a frame for knowledge to be filled by physical experience, but it is rather a vague knowledge that we already born with it, and when we experience we just remember, exactly as Plato had said. And, as the Quran has explained, knowledge is memorizing what we already knew. What an amazing reality! This means that our physical reality is just the tip of the huge iceberg of existence lying beyond the physical reality. When we talk about spirit and spiritual experiences, we are referring to that iceberg with all its contents of the invisible existence. We surely live in a multi-dimensional layers of existence with different frequencies of vibration of particles. Actually, on the other hand, and as I have mentioned before, there are scientific researches on life after death, though people are still debating on its methods and results. When we talk about the spirit world, actually we are talking about an adjacent world, very near to us to the extent that we are not aware of it. It was said that the tree of knowledge is one. Its roots are metaphysics, its trunk is physics, and its branches are the various sciences. By metaphysics, we mean the origin of physical existence and what lies beyond the natural world, beyond our physical reality and physical selves and senses. There is a natural metaphysics and a human metaphysics. There is philosophical metaphysics and religious or spiritual metaphysics. Through material progress and modernity, and, more importantly, through a faithful and authentic spiritual enlightenment, a philosophy suited to the postmodern age will emerge. This philosophy will constitute a spiritual, cultural, intellectual, and reformative revolution. Rooted in the Abrahamic faiths, it will also extend to other great traditions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Confucianism, and Taoism. This new scientific and spiritual awakening will liberate religion from rigid doctrinal divisions and transform it into a rational, experiential, and objective endeavor, one that affirms faith, peace, goodness, and altruism as essential to human happiness and the well-being of the soul. Throughout history, religion used indemnity, sacrificing the body for the sake of the spirit. As long as humanity remains within the age of indemnity, religious life cannot be entirely joyful, since it requires fasting, continuous prayer, and various forms of devotion and sacrifice. Yet history shows us that such suffering is gradually alleviated through the progressive unfolding of God's providence. God's will is to make the whole earth a holy land and all people a chosen people, to reclaim the entire world and all humanity for himself through love, truth, spirit, and peace. The exposition of the divine principle explains that Jacob's course became the model for Moses and later for Jesus. Jacob's course also is a typical course for Prophet Muhammad. From this perspective, we can observe that God's providence often centers on particular individuals in order to reveal his plan for all humanity. Because evil forces have exercised broad influence over the majority of humankind, God works through chosen individuals while aiming at the salvation of all. In this way, his love, concern, and care are expressed universally, even when manifested through specific person or specific group of people. This pattern characterizes the historical development and expansion of the providence. the scope of divine providence has expanded progressively, from the individual to the family, from the family to the nation, and ultimately to the entire world, embracing all humanity and all creation. A historical example can be found in ancient Egypt and the Nile Valley civilization, where belief in life after death and resurrection was highly developed. Initially, the priests of Amun regarded the afterlife as a privilege reserved for kings, and this belief led to the construction of the pyramids. However, over time, this belief broadened, first extending to high officials, and eventually to the general population. Today, life after death is widely understood as a universal human destiny. A similar pattern appears in the monotheistic traditions. The Bible records that Elijah, Elias, would return before the Messiah. Christians believe that the spirit of Elijah appeared in John the Baptist, Yehya ibn Zechariah. Yet it seems likely that such spiritual cooperation between the departed and the living was not limited to these two figures. Jesus himself later proclaimed that he would return. This suggests that interaction between the spiritual and physical realms has been an ongoing process, not a singular event. In a sense, actually aspects of Elijah's life prepared the path for John, as though John inherited Elijah's spiritual mission. This broader spiritual phenomenon may also shed light on the emergence of concepts such as reincarnation in Hinduism and Buddhism.